Cassandra knew the horse was a weapon. She said so out loud, in front of everyone. She grabbed an axe and tried to break it open right there in the street. The Trojans laughed, pushed her aside, decorated the thing with flowers, and dragged it through the city gates themselves. That moment is neither a story about stupidity nor stubbornness. It's about a curse so precisely designed that the truth, coming from her mouth, was indistinguishable from the sound of someone losing their mind. To understand what happened to Cassandra, you have to understand what the curse actually did and what it didn't do. Welcome. This is Mythology for you. Let's get into it. Cassandra was a princess of Troy, daughter of King Priam and Queen Hecuba, sister to Hector and Paris, and twin to a brother named Helenus. She was considered one of the most beautiful women in the city, which, in Greek myth, is less of a compliment and more of a warning. Divine attention toward mortal women in this world rarely ended well for the woman. There are actually two separate traditions about how Cassandra and her brother came to have the gift of prophecy. The older one says that as children they fell asleep inside Apollo's temple during a festival, and when their parents found them the next morning, snakes were licking their ears clean. After that, both twins could hear things no one else could, the language of birds, the shape of things to come. The more familiar version comes later, and it's the one that explains everything that follows. In this version, Apollo himself came to Cassandra and offered her the gift of foresight in exchange for her affections. She accepted the gift, and then she refused him. Here's where the myth becomes precise in a way that matters. Apollo couldn't take the gift back. In Greek tradition, a god is bound by what he's already given. There's no taking it back once it's done. So instead, he did something else. Some sources say he spat in her mouth. That act was the curse, not a removal of her power, an addition to it. From that point on, everything she predicted would be completely true, and no one would ever believe a word of it. Think about what that means to live with. She wasn't confused. She wasn't wrong. She saw everything clearly, and had to watch it happen exactly as she said, every time, while being ignored. The curse affected how people heard her. Truth, from her, sounded like hysteria, like obsession, like something you dismiss and walk away from. So what did she actually predict? When Paris, her brother, was sent on the diplomatic trip to Sparta that ended with him bringing Helen back to Troy, Cassandra warned plainly that it would destroy the city. Nobody stopped him. When the Trojan Horse appeared on the beach and the Greeks seemed to have sailed away, Cassandra told anyone who would listen that it was a weapon, that soldiers were hiding inside it, that bringing it into the walls would be the end of everything. She tried to physically break it open herself. The Trojans called it a gift from the gods and celebrated in the streets. And when the city finally fell and she was taken as a war prize by the Greek king Agamemnon and put on a ship headed for Mycenae, she told him, during that voyage, that he would be murdered in his own home shortly after they arrived. He was dead within hours of walking through his front door. Not one of those predictions was wrong. The myth gives her a perfect record and then makes sure none of it changes a single thing. There is a term used in psychology today, Cassandra syndrome, sometimes called the Cassandra complex, to describe the experience of making accurate predictions that are consistently dismissed. It exists as a recognized concept, and it has her name on it for obvious reasons. Before we get to how her story ends, there's something that happened in the immediate aftermath of Troy's fall that has consequences reaching far beyond her. After the city was taken, Cassandra sought refuge in Athena's temple, one of the few places in the ancient world where a person was considered untouchable, protected by the sanctity of the space itself. A Greek warrior named Ajax, not the famous one, but a lesser-known soldier from Lycoris who is often called Ajax the Lesser to distinguish him, dragged her away from the altar and assaulted her there. It was considered one of the worst acts of sacrilege committed during the entire war. Athena, who had spent most of the conflict supporting the Greeks, was so enraged by what happened in her own temple that she turned against the Greek fleet on their voyage home. The storms that scattered the ships, the shipwrecks, the disasters that hit so many of the returning heroes, those trace back to that moment. The 10 years Odysseus spent trying to get home are, in part, a consequence of what Ajax did to Cassandra in that temple. After that, she was handed to Agamemnon as his share of the spoils. She already knew, by then, exactly what was waiting for her at the end of that voyage. She had already told him, and yet there was nothing to be done. The most important version of what happens next comes from Aeschylus, the Greek playwright, in a tragedy called the Agamemnon, part of a trilogy he wrote called the Euripides. It's the oldest and most complete literary treatment of her story that we have. In it, Cassandra arrives at Agamemnon's palace in Mycenae and stands outside the doors. She knows what's inside. She knows what's about to happen, to him and to herself. Inside that palace, Agamemnon's wife Clytemnestra is waiting for both of them. Her reasons are her own, and they go back years. Agamemnon had sacrificed their daughter Iphigenia before the war even began, killing her to secure favorable winds for the Greek fleet sailing to Troy. Clytemnestra had spent the entire 10 years of that war waiting for him to come home. She kills Agamemnon, and she kills Cassandra too. Cassandra, who had seen all of this coming. Cassandra, who had said so. Apollo is the god of truth, reason, and prophecy. His entire domain rests on the idea that truth should be heard and understood. The curse he built for Cassandra made truth, coming from her, functionally identical to noise. That's the irony sitting at the center of this myth. What do you guys think about this? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.